Story time with Game Master Mike. Hey folks, this is Game Master Mike, and we're going to tell you all the stories about my recess detention stories. Now, this is going to be a two-parter because this is going to be expectantly a long story, which I'm going to tell you all, but I'm not going to tell it too long. But this is mainly the story about me jumping in the mud when I was in the first grade during recess so I can get home from school. Now, it is a scheme that I pulled, but I've ended up getting into a ton of trouble. And after that, I have never done it again because know that I'm going to get into some serious trouble by jumping in the mud on purpose. But I'm going to tell you all about this story. Okay, this has all happened when I was in the first grade, by the way, because this part is all my first grade detention stories. And so, therefore, during recess, I was benched because apparently I was swinging on the swings, twisting around, and then the recess teacher put me on the bench, and you know, I was so pissed off. I got a rock and I slammed it down on the ground. And then the recess coach looked at me and told me, "Did you throw a rock?" she said. And I was like, "Yes." So she dragged me into the principal's office. She told me about it and I got yelled at. I had to sit at the bench at the principal's office. And I saw this boy covered in mud saying that he slipped and fall. He was all completely soaked in mud because the playground was still muddy because it rained that day. So he got sent home because he was all covered in mud. And so I was like, that's a good idea. Maybe if I jump in the mud, then I get sent home. So anyway, that week, it rained that day, but it sprinkled, and usually when it sprinkles, we usually have indoor recess watching generic movies. However, this one recess coach decided that we get to play on the blacktop while it was sprinkling a little outside, so she allowed us to go outside, but we had to wear jackets to play on the blacktop, and we weren't allowed to have any balls or hula hoops, and we cannot run. We can only walk on the blacktop. And so the whistle blew and everyone got in line, and so we walked back to school. And there was this huge mud puddle that's been there since when I was in kindergarten. So the first grade at that time. So you know what I did? I've purposely untied my shoes and walked to that mud puddle, and you know what I did? I fell in the mud. I was muddy from head to toe. So I walked into the office all covered in mud, saying that I've slipped in the mud. I wasn't watching where I was going. So the secretary there called my grandparents, and they came and picked me up. That was an amazing scheme that I got sent home from school by jumping in the mud. So they also drove through McDonald's and got me a snack. That was pretty neat. So I got sent home, changed of clothes, jumped in the tub. I had the rest of the day just to chill and relax at my grandparents until they dropped me off from school that day. I mean, dropped me off from home the other day. It's like, wow, I want to do it again. So a couple days later, that same mud puddle, which called my name, I jumped in it again. Yep, that was the second time. Well, this time, they did not send me home. Well, they sent my grandparents in with a change of clothes. I was pissed off that my grandparents did not send me home. So, you know what I did? A couple weeks later, I jumped in that same mud puddle again. This time, I got screamed at by the principal, told me, guess what? You get to wear your clothes. You lost your recess for an entire week. So, I had to go go to class all covered in mud. Got mud everywhere. We're on the desks, and I was tracking in mud in the entire school. And my first grade teacher just shook his head through the entire day. All covered in mud. I can't help it. I want to get sent home from school. And so the fourth time I've picked up mud on the ground, and I've spread it all over my pants. And my kindergarten aide, which was my aide at that time, yelled, "Oh my God!" She was pissed. And so, anyway, she dragged me into the principal's office, and I lost my recess through the entire 9 weeks. I had to sit in the bench at the office through that time. And so I was bored beyond belief at the office. I was in so much trouble. They called my parents. They've know that I'm pulling a scheme, and you don't know how pissed I was that I lost my recess. So through that entire month, I sat in the office basically just bored while the secretary was doing her work. And of course, there's some kids there that also got in trouble at recess. One of the kid had gotten his basketball taken away by the secretary, and he called her a butthole. He yelled at her, called her like this, "Butthole!" And he ran, and the secretary said, "Did you just call me a butthole?" she said, and chasing after him. I've laughed my ass off in the office, and the principal walked down and said, "You better stop laughing." And I couldn't control my laughter. So the principal threatened to call my parents because I was laughing so hard. And then I stopped after that. So the secretary dragged this boy back in and yelled at him saying, "You do not call people's names." And of course he was sat at the principal's office in the corner, and then he called his parents and get sent home. And that was another scheme that I wanted to try to get sent home from school. However, I didn't do it because I would get in even much trouble, possibly suspended, so I didn't want to do that. So, however, during that last month, the principal walked up to me and says, "You have already served your sentence, but if you do it again, you can just forget about seeing daylight in school again." So I was released from detention, basically. So I got to play outside. There's my first grade teacher walking up, told me and said, "Did the principal release you from detention?" And I told him, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to tell the principal if you've been released and you're not making it up." And so she did, and she said, "You've been released." Well, technically, that was a parole sentence, but I had a feeling if I did it again that I'll lose my recess for good. So I enjoyed the rest of my last month of school playing in the first grade, playing outside during recess. And therefore, that will tell you that I've never jumped in the mud in school again. So there you go, folks. That is part 1 of my recess detention stories, which is about me jumping in the mud when I was in elementary school during the first grade. And stay tuned for part 2, which will be more interesting. Yes, I did get in trouble during recess and got sent to detention, but I will tell you all about that during part 2. So please stay tuned.